On today's episode of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, he's back. Mr. Steel Roden is back in the building, and we have a jam-packed episode to get right into. What the flip is Jay Beagle thinking? Nazem Kadris' injury and Keith Yando's Ironman streak ended, plus big-time bets and DFS targets, baby. Let's ride.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, everybody? And welcome back to the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast with Big Flip Livingstone and the returning Mr. Steel Roden. After a couple of days on the IR, my wingman is back. The DFS Puck Line Guru is back. And for a jam-packed episode, just in time, my friend, because on today's episode, we have a lot to talk about. Big weekend in the NHL. Big last month of the NHL schedule coming up, and there is a lot to unpack. You know we're talking about what the flip Jay Beagle is thinking the other night, knocking Troy Terry around. Man, I always get those names mixed up, but it's okay. Thank you for making us your first listen every single day. This is a jam-packed episode. DFS targets, big-time bets coming up later in the show. But I'm really interested to hear what my friend Steel Roden has to say about what I feel was a really hard sequence to watch, Steel, from a hockey player's perspective. I didn't like what Jay Beagle did the other night. I'm intrigued to hear what you have to say. We're going to talk Kadri. We're going to talk Keith Yandle. But let's start off with what the flip was Jay Beagle doing and what was he thinking out there?
Yeah, I think by now everyone has seen or heard what Jay Beagle did in that Coyotes Ducks game on Friday night. I think Jay Beagle is an absolute moron. And I've said this before. I've said this to you countless times. Arizona is the place where your career goes to die. And that's exactly what has happened with Jay Beagle. Yes, he played most of his career with the Washington Capitals. Even then, for the first 5 or 6, he was only playing like 30 games a year in a season. He played for Vancouver a couple of years, and now he's on the Arizona Coyotes. He's got 1 point in 25 games. This guy's a fourth-liner bum who goes out there and just looks for fights and scraps to get the team going, I guess, but he doesn't really do much out there. He averages 11 minutes on the ice, so he doesn't play that much. He has no benefits to his team, and he goes out and does this. And I think what made it worse for me and what really set me off was the commentator, the choice of words that he had to say during the play. And I'll just say what he said. That's the problem with these young players. You want to skill it up. You better be prepared to get punched in the mouth, which is just absolutely nonsense to say after a play like this just happened.
Yeah.
What do you mean skill it up? Like, these guys are talented. Like, this is the way the NHL is going right now. We got faster and more skilled players playing.
Yes.
That's why we don't need these fourth line goons that much anymore. You want to have a structured team. And that's why Arizona is that bad, because look at their second, third, and fourth line. Just absolutely brutal out there. And it's honestly just nonsense. So, Jay Beagle is just a poor loser. They're getting absolutely obliterated 5-0. He goes out there and fights a guy who doesn't even have his gloves off. No. Like, it's just absolutely nonsense. I think Jay Beagle's an absolute moron for what he did.
There's a lot to unpack here, in my opinion, Steel, because I think there's a couple of what the flip moments for me. Number one, where is someone to back Troy Terry up? Like, as much as Zegras came in and said what he did after the game, and I respect him for saying that. I like the way he handled himself after calling out Beagle, not even by name, saying, I'm not even going to address him by name. It was embarrassing, he said, and it was embarrassing because look at the score. 5-0. Terry doesn't even have his mitts up, and you're feeding this guy straight shots to the dome. That gets me fired up. I'm not even a Ducks fan or a Terry fan per se, but even what Zegras said after the game, he's a superstar in this league. I don't necessarily agree with that, but 32 goals, it doesn't matter. You don't just sucker punch someone who isn't there to fight. I hate to see that. And you mentioned it. One of the points that I had here, Jay Beagle is irrelevant. He's an irrelevant player, whereas the Ducks are on the playoff bubble. I know they've played themselves out, but Troy Terry has a lot more going for him and a career ahead of him, and he's getting his head bounced off the ice. it fires me up. I appreciate that you're also fired up, because at the end of the day, I think where my second what the flip goes, Steele, is where is the NHL Department of Player Safety on this one? They missed it with Taylor Hall punching Lyubushkin in the side of the head. That should have been a game or two. This should have been a couple of games as well. And I just think there's a couple of what the flip moments and a lot to unpack, and just what was an ugly sequence to watch. I think we can agree on that.
Yeah. And yeah, we both completely agree with this topic. I'm honestly just shocked that the NHL hasn't done anything yet. Like, it's already been 3 days at this point, and nothing has come about this incident. So for me, I'm honestly just furious that, look, to me, it doesn't matter if the guy's a 30 goal scorer. If the guy's going to drop his gloves, then yeah, you both have given pretty much permission that you want to scrap. But Troy Terry is just wrapping Beagle up, but Beagle doesn't give, 2 cents about what Terry wants to do. His gloves weren't off. He just wanted to beat someone to a pulp, and that's exactly what he did. The picture that came out afterwards of Troy Terry's black eye, bloodied a little bit, it was honestly just gross to see. And it's just terrible for the game, because this is not the way the game is heading. If they're both going to drop the gloves, I'm all for it. I love seeing fights in the NHL, but it's only just a blindside hit, just a sucker punch.
I think also there's something to be said about kind of what you mentioned in terms of the comments from the Arizona commentators, which were
brutal.
So offside. But what can you expect from an Arizona commentator who probably doesn't even know a good hockey game from his bunghole? So let's just leave that at that. But what I'll also say about this whole thing, Steele, is at the end of the day, Jay Beagle has no place in the NHL moving forward. And here he is potentially, like, let's say Terry gets his head knocked out and banged off the ice. Career over. Then what are we talking about here, right? Then it's lawsuits. Then it's all kinds of madness. But anyway, at the end of the day, I also think, was this not a little bit of quote unquote payback for Zegras' disgusting Michigan move that unpants the whole Arizona roster in one move? That's why you're really angry, isn't it, Beagle?
Yeah.
You can't handle the new kids coming in with some flair, which is what this league needs so badly. And here you are to put a black eye on what should have been a viral moment pumping this game. But no, we have Beagle beating someone to a pulp instead, when it should have been Zegras, Terry, and all the young players on the Ducks 5-0 win. But we're not talking about that, are we?
Yeah, exactly. I think we pretty much covered it all with Jay Beagle. The guy's an absolute moron for what he did. And
thank you.
Yeah, his career is pretty much going to be over in the next couple of seasons. He'll be done playing in the NHL. Yeah. Let's jump over to Nazem Kadris, though. A serious injury to the Colorado Avalanche. Yes. For me, these injuries are a huge concern going into the playoffs. I honestly don't think, with all of these injuries, that Colorado makes it to the Stanley Cup Finals. I actually think, I'm not trying to be biased, but I think the Minnesota Wild are the wild card in this Western Conference. You look at all the teams in the Western Conference right now, and besides the Colorado Avalanche, all of those teams fighting for a playoff spot would be 8th in the Eastern Conference right now, because Calgary's at 89 points and Boston's at 91, and they're in the first wild card spot. So for me, this is serious concern with the Nazem Kadri injury, especially with all the guys they already have. Landeskog's out for an extended period of time. Byram hasn't played since January 10th. Gerard is out for an extended period of time. These are some serious players. And with Kadri being out, it hasn't said, they haven't come out with how long he will be out of the lineup, but they said for a little bit. So it's definitely, for me, I think it's looking at towards for a week right now. But these injuries are serious concern, because these injuries create problems in the postseason because of the pace of play, the physicality in this. Those injuries can be re-aggravated and nag you for an entire series, for the entire playoff. So for me, this is huge concern for the Colorado Avalanche. I'm not 100% in on Darcy Kemper. I know he's played great, but I'm still not 100% on him heading into the postseason.
There is a lot to unpack here with this Kadri injury. And before I get into that, and before we get after the break with DFS targets and big-time bets, we're going to talk about Keith Yandle and some more about Nazem Kadri. But we got to pay the bills, and I got to mention that this episode is sponsored and brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline.net has you covered this season with more props, odds, lines than ever before. BetOnline, it's where the game starts. Also, I want to tell you guys about Built Bars, because they have some new fire flavors, including banana cream pie, churro, raspberry cheesecake, and salted caramel, Oh my goodness, I haven't eaten dinner and I might just call it a night on a few Built Bars and see you tomorrow. They're covered in 100% real chocolate. They are low calorie, high protein. You need to replace your candy bars with these. They are better. A typical candy bar will run you anywhere from 200 to 300 calories. We know it's beach season coming up. It's time to get healthy. Most Built Bars contain 130 grams, 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, and 4 net carbs. Compare that to the old doo-doo candy bar. It is not healthy. You don't want any of that. 240 calories, 30 grams of sugar. Let's not even go there. At Built Bar, they're all about the taste. They make it delicious first, then figure out how to make it healthy. I don't know how, but they pull it off every single time. Go to Built.com, punch in the promo code LOCK15 and get 15% off.
Thank you for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every day. For your next listen, you have to check out the Locked On Now podcast, nightly recaps of every NHL game with analysis from our local experts. You don't want to miss out on all the highlights. I know I don't. It's free and available wherever you get your podcast, just like this podcast right here. So please make sure you hit the subscribe, hit the follow button, and get the latest episodes of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast as soon as they're available each and every day, Monday to Friday. Flip, we were just talking about Nazem Kadris and the serious injuries towards the Colorado Avalanche's lineup. Yeah, for me, it's a serious injury for all of them that they have on the Avalanche right now.
Mm-hmm.
And what are your thoughts on the Avalanche? For me, it's a serious concern.
Here, man, this is it. When, Jared Bednar, head coach of the Colorado Avalanche, comes out and says he's confident Kadri will be there for the first round, that means at the very least he's injured till about then. So I think when you're saying a week or two, I think that's probably a best case scenario. I'm thinking maybe 3 to 4 weeks, because if he's saying confident for the playoffs, that means he's not confident for the playoffs. And this is a huge, huge concern for a team that's just lost Gabriel Landeskog. I know they have McKinnon. I know they have Makar. They have studs. But, man, Gabriel Landeskog is a real heart and soul piece of that lineup. And we know this as Leafs fans. What is Nazem Kadri? A glue guy, a heart and soul guy. Yeah. You just lost 2 of them. I know they added Arturi Lehkonen at the deadline and Josh Manson. That's not enough to replace those 2 guys that they just lost. Steele, I think if you are these guys' fantasy owners, one, that's a concern at this time of year, huge. But also, if you have any kind of wager on the Colorado Avalanche right now, if those 2 guys aren't suiting up in the first round of the playoffs and Darcy Kemper decides to go old cuckoo Darcy, this team might be in real trouble, Steele, real trouble.
That's what I think. And also looking at it, it's also tough because Landeskog and Kadri are some of the most physical guys on their team as well. So that's another element out of the game plan heading into the playoffs if they're not back in time. So for me, it's serious concern. I think for me, the Minnesota Wild are the dark horse in this. I actually think they have a really good chance at making it to the Stanley Cup Finals this year, but we'll see what time. We'll see how long it takes for Landeskog, Kadri, and the rest of the guys to get back in the lineup. Someone that was out of the lineup as well, who was who's in the lead for the Ironman streak, Keith Yandel of the Philadelphia Flyers. For me, I thought that was an absolute joke that he was scratched. Like what was coming out of that organization for the reasoning to scratch him. Like, I understand you're out of playoff. You're not going to make the playoffs. Your team's kind of heading in a different direction. Mike Yeo, he comes out and says that, they need to give a couple of younger guys some playing time with, 14 games left in the season. For me, I think that's a little bit of a joke. This guy's 11 games away from 1,000 consecutive games. I don't think it was the right move.
I think at any time these streaks get a little bit, it makes it a difficult situation, because obviously fans and the regular hockey people are going to say, come on, throw him back out there. It's the very same scenario. And I don't know if you know that story with Mike Modano and Mike Babcock.
Yeah.
Where Babcock's like, I don't care if he's about to play 4,000 games. If he's not ready to go, he's going to sit on the bench, and he sat him out and he missed out on a couple of huge milestones. Anyway, realistically, Keith Yandel's not playing. He's getting scratched a year ago on any other team. But come on, man. The Flyers are almost in dead last. Let this guy run. He's still a serviceable defenseman. Sure, his best days are behind him. And there's probably some better options on the Flyers, but it can't be that much better, can it?
No, I don't think so. I was a little confused, but whatever. I'm not the coach. I'm not the GM of the Philadelphia Flyers, so I don't make those kind of decisions. I can only give my opinion on what we know. And for me, I think it was the wrong decision from the organization. Let's jump over to the DFS selections for Monday night. 4 games on the schedule, a couple of juicy matchups. The one being the Toronto Maple Leafs versus the Tampa Bay Lightning, the obvious potential first round matchup. Which I love to see, and like what you love to say, a statement game.
Thank you.
In the last little bit of the regular season.
Yep.
That isn't the matchup I'm looking at, though.
Okay.
I do like the St. Louis Blues against the Arizona Coyotes because they are at home. But for me, I'm looking at 3 guys, 2 in particular: Robert Thomas and Vladimir Tarasenko. I think those 2 have some amazing chemistry on the second line, I'm going to double down on Robert Thomas. I am so happy that I put him at second on my list back a couple episodes ago.
How's
this guy
Josh
is
Norris
so
looking?
Underrated.
He's
looking good, man. He's looking
bad.
good, but he's not
Jack
second.
Hughes.
He's not second.
Bad. Side note, we'll return to that conversation.
You were right about Jack Hughes. But Robert Thomas, I'm confident and happy with my spot at second. I think he's a super underrated guy. Thomas has 15 points in his last 9 games. Tarasenko, 11 points as well. Those guys have been finding each other every single time they step on the ice. Both top power play unit as well. I'm also throwing Colton Parayko on the back end because I don't think that he will be too expensive, probably around 4,500. My best guess as of right now. But again, he can chip in from time to time offensively, but it's really the hits, the blocks, and the shots that you're going to get your fantasy points out of this guy.
Most definitely. And before I get into a couple of my targets, make sure you guys stay tuned around the break because Steele's back in a big way, baby. Big Flips 11-1 with his picks over the last 3 nights. Another perfect Saturday. So stay tuned for big time bets because it's good to have you back, my friend. Steele wrote in DFS Guru, Puckline King. Stay tuned for some bets. Right at the top of my notes, Steele. DFS, Robert Thomas. Is that his first name? What's his first name?
Robert Thomas. Robert Thomas, baby.
Sensational of late. Plus, Tarasenko scoring at will. The Coyotes, I will also say, on the second night of a back-to-back steal, even the best teams in the league, that's a tough spot. Might be Harry Sateri in net, the gold medal Finn who just won the gold in the Olympics. So, could be a wonky night for the Arizona Coyotes. Yeah. Holy crow. But I love this spot for the St. Louis Blues forwards. You're going to be paying a premium, but I think it's going to be worth it against this Arizona teams who we know. They might as well be called the crooked number Coyotes because there's always a big number in their net.
Yeah, it always seems to be that way. That 2-week period seems to be obviously a fluke it has gone and passed. But yeah, the St. Louis Blues are in great position against the Arizona Coyotes Monday night. The second game I'm looking at is that Columbus Blue Jackets versus Boston Bruins. And I'm not going to mention the top tier guys because, of course, they're top tier for a reason. You're going to pay the premium price for, Brad Marchand, Patrick Laine, David Pastrnak, those type of players. I want to single out some of the bottom 6 forwards that you can really find some value and some cheap options. For me, I'm looking at Sean Corrali of the Columbus Blue Jackets as well as Cole Sillinger. I think those guys have been very underrated and have done well in the bottom 6 for the forward group. I've talked a lot about Vladislav Gavrikov. I think this is a very underrated defenseman on the Blues for the Blue Jackets as well on the blue line. He's done terrific the last 10 games. He's putting up points at a very, very high rate. And then on the other side of things, Jake DeBrusk and Craig Smith. I know Jake DeBrusk is on the top line, but he's been great too. And you're not going to pay the premium price that you would for a guy like Brad Marchand.
No, and I wanted to give you, speaking of my notes, I wanted to give you some credit because you pointed this out, I would say, almost 2 weeks ago, that some of those bottom 6 guys on the Boston Bruins were really starting to click. And look at the Boston Bruins go with this balanced scoring, right? They're arguably the hottest team in the league, right up there. And the other night, Haula, goal. Charlie Coyle, goal. DeBrusk, goal and an assist. And you pointed that out a few weeks ago. So I think there's, some definite value here in those guys down the Bruins lineup. And, the other place I'm going, Steele, is to the Toronto Maple Leafs Tampa Bay Lightning game. And I'm not going to talk about it too much other than if you need a goaltender, this is the game that I would go to. We talked about playoff atmosphere games. These two teams might have to go through each other in a couple of weeks. I know Campbell only had 1 game back, small sample size. but he looked healthy.
He looked good. He did look good.
He's moving well. So that's the start. We know it's a lot up here with Campbell as well. So I'll just leave it at this, that I think if you're after a goalie, Andrei Vasilevsky, you're going to pay the premium for. Jack Campbell is an option. And if you're not looking there, because I really focused on goalies, Calgary Flames at the LA Kings. The LA Kings are a goal-strapped team. Jakob Markstrom is a good option, but that's another game that I expect, Steele, to be low scoring. Why not sprinkle a little on John Quick or Cal Peterson as well?
I like your take on the goalies for the Leafs and Maple Leaf game, as well as that Flames and Kings game. I did make a couple of bets for that Kings game as well, so we'll get to that very, very soon.
Yes.
But I need to let you know about betonline.net. It's that time of year again where tonight is the national championship game. Yep. It goes down tonight between the North Carolina Tar Heels and Kansas Jayhawks. It's going to be a great game. From all the latest odds, contests, and player props, betonline.net is the number one source for all your sporting and betting needs and info. And it's not just basketball. So I know why you're going to be watching this national championship game. BetOnline is your continued source for all your wagering information needs, including live betting and your favorite casino games. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline, where the game starts. Thank you for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every day. Don't forget, we are free and available on all podcast platforms, which also includes YouTube. So make sure you hit the subscribe and the follow button, and you'll get the latest episodes of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, hosted by Big Flip Livingstone and myself, Steele Roden. Thank you for tuning in for this episode. If you made it this far, we are now in the big time bet segment where the money is made. Flip absolutely rolling into the weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, just hitting every single bet that he's put down. I'll throw it over to you for your first bet because you are on fire.
I appreciate that, my friend. Finally hitting picks with regularity, like Steele said, and I appreciate that, love. 11-1 since Thursday. I'm going to keep feeding you what I'm trying to do best, which is winners. Hey, 4-game board, right? Sometimes these are a little bit easier to look at than a 9, 10, 11, or even 12-game board. A little bit easier to digest. Steele, I'm going to the 2 games that attracted my attention the most, and I'll give you both picks right away because they are the same. Toronto Maple Leafs at Tampa Bay Lightning. This is a big time game for 2 teams that might even be facing each other. At some point, they're going to be going through each other if they want to be the team in the East. Measuring stick game. You've heard it from me before. Where do those go? Under the number. I'm taking the under in this game, Steele. Under 6.5. The total has gone under the number in 9 of Toronto's last 12 games on the road in Tampa. The number has gone under the total in 8 of Tampa's last 10 games overall. This is an interdivisional game, and they've been hitting for me on the under. Toronto Maple Leafs, Tampa Bay Lightning, under 6.5. And another game, Steele, that I like to be a playoff atmosphere measuring stick game. Hello, the Calgary Flames at the LA Kings. Sure, Calgary has 3 games in hand on LA, but take a look at that division standings. LA is 3 points back. This is a big-time game for both squads. I think we'll see the same kind of thing. Oh, wait, the total has gone under the number in 5 of the last 6 games between these two. Steele, I'm loving it. These 2 teams play good
I know
defense
you are,
as well. I'm fired up, brother. Give me the under in the LA Kings Calgary Flames game. I'm teasing it up to 6.5, but that's the under in 2 playoff measuring stick games that I expect to be great to watch.
Wow, you're not a big under guy, so I'm very surprised you're doubling down with these 2 games.
Yes, sir.
I do like the under in that Flames Kings game. I'm a little scared, a little hesitant for that Lightning Leafs game because there's so much superstar up front. They can score goals at will if they really want to, and if they're picking corners like we know that Kucherov, Stamkos, and Matthews can, it could be a great game, but a high scoring game at that. For me, I'll go off what your last pick was. The Kings. I'm taking the Kings on the money line against the Flames. I believe the Kings are at home.
Yep.
They are at home against the Flames. I like them in this position. I really like the way the top 2 lines have been rolling. with, since the trade deadline. And you did mention it. They are 3 points back of the Flames, but I think the Flames do have 2 or 3 games in hand on the Kings right now. So it will be a little bit of a battle to reach up to them, but I think it can be done starting with Monday night against the Flames. I'm taking the Kings on the money line, and I'll just roll right into my other 2 picks.
Yep.
I'm taking the Blues on the puck line king. You said it yourself. Arizona playing the second game of a back-to-back. It's going to be a difficult spot for them. So I'm very, very comfortable with the Blues on the puck line, especially if Ville Husso's in net.
He's
in the way
great.
that Tarasenko and Thomas have been playing. Yeah, he's been absolutely fantastic. A hidden gem since, Bennington kind of fell off his game a little bit a couple months ago. And then my lock of the night, my lock of the night is the Blues puck line. But my third pick and last pick of the night, Robert Thomas, anytime assist. I love the way he's been playing this season. He's elevated his game. He's got 42 assists on the season, 15 goals. Ever since I said that he needed to start shooting the puck more, he's been shooting the puck and he's been scoring more. So I like the way his game's been playing. Robert Thomas, anytime assist for me.
Hey, man, that's one of those ones that I'm listening to you talk about it, and I'm going to put some money on that one as well. He's just been too good. And I know Arizona had a flash in the pan there for 2 weeks, but this team is hot poo-poo, and I am going to continue to bet against them all the way down the stretch, especially when they're losing 5-0 to the Ducks, who the Ducks just hadn't won a game in a month. So if you're getting shut out by the Anaheim Ducks, you're in trouble. Shout out to Jay Beagle and that crew. But look, my lock of the night, I think as a Toronto Maple Leafs fan and supporter, I try to do a really good job of showing the teams that I hate some love. The Boston Bruins is one of those teams, and you've said it as well. They are playing great hockey right now. And sure, you can mention the top cast of characters. They're going to be there. But that bottom 6 has been a big reason, I think, for the team's overall success and allowed that top line to get a little bit more skating room because you need to worry about those shooters on the second and third line. With that said, Brad Marchand, with the 6-game suspension, still putting up another 30-plus goal, 70-plus point year. That's his 5th of those out of his last 7 seasons. That's impressive. He's also red hot of late steal. I believe he has, he does, 4 goals and 5 assists in his last 4 games. Brad Marchand, anytime assist, is my lock of the night for what I expect to be another big game for the Boston Bruins as they continue to close the gap on that playoff race.
I think Bruce Cassidy has done a fantastic job, finding chemistry throughout his entire lineup. They had to switch something up fast because of the way they were playing when they were gone. You bring Jake DeBrusk up, you bring David Pastrnak down, you spread the love out a little bit, and that second line, the third line, and even the fourth line a little bit now are hitting a lot more and scoring some goals. So I like what Bruce Cassidy has done in the last couple of months to, kind of change up the lineups. So to reiterate, Flip's lock of the night, anytime assist from Brad Marchand. My lock of the night are the St. Louis Blues on the puck line against the Arizona Coyotes. Pencil it in, lock it in, put your money down to make some money, bring some extra cash home. Splurge on the wife, the girlfriend, the boyfriend, whatever you do, but get some of that extra cash while you can. Thank you for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every day. If you want more gambling advice on what you should pick, but for not just hockey, make your second listen Locked On Bets, your daily one-stop shop for all your gambling needs. Locked On Bets, it's hosted by your boy Q with insight from Lee Sterling. It's free and available on all podcast platforms, just like this podcast right here. So like I said before, hit the subscribe, hit the follow button, and you'll get the latest episodes of Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast as soon as they're available each and every day, Monday to Friday, 7 o'clock in the morning. Flip and I appreciate all the love and support out there. So thank you so much for what you do. And, just tuning in for the episode. We appreciate you listening in. And if you have any comments, don't be afraid to, drop any comments on the YouTube channel or message us on our Twitter page. Thank you for tuning in for today's episode with Flip and I. Have a great day. Good luck with all your bets out there, and we shall see you back here again tomorrow.
Peace.